I'm saying? Yeah. The fanatic. Where we keep it 100, keep it real. That's the only way we know how to be. Talking that sports talk. You know what I'm saying? Straight out of South Carolina. Upstate, 864. Yeah. The FANATTIC. The fanatic where we keep it OG. We talking sports, so I call what.
Welcome into the Fanatic Sports Channel for sports fans by sports fan. It's your man, Coach I.
And I'm the stat guy.
Hey, we're back for another start bench cut, man. This time, this is the Wisconsin Badgers edition, man. And we brought in a little help to come on here and give us some of that good, in-depth knowledge about Wisconsin. So let's bring them on in. We're going to bring Ryan from Locked On Badgers, man. He's on YouTube and Twitter, man. What's going on, Ryan?
Hey, nothing much, man. Thank you guys both for having me on the show. I'm really excited for this.
Hey, man, no problem. I'm glad you came on, man. Good to have some up north folk come on that actually know some. You know, we like to have fans on that actually know the sport and not just say, hey, man, we're Wisconsin. We're going to win because we got the biggest line or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I'm glad to have you on. Tell the people where they can find you, man.
Yeah, so pretty simple. Locked On Badgers, if you ever have any interest in checking out the show, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, we do it every day. And then on Twitter at Locked On Badgers. So if you want any Badger news, coverage, or just Big Ten stuff, like tonight, we're going to chop up the Big Ten coaches, rank them in order. So, yeah, you can find me there.
That's what's up, man. We're going to jump right in. We're going to let the stat guy give the players, and then Ryan's going to tell us who's going to start, bench, and cut. And, stat guy is not stat guy. Name stat guy for any reason. He may have some crazy stats for you to see to maybe make you change your mind at the end.
We'll see.
All right, stat guy, go ahead and give us our players, man.
All right, man. Well, since we're doing Wisconsin, there's only one position at Wisconsin you can do. It's got to be the running back room. I'd argue that Wisconsin might have one of the deepest running back rooms from 2000 on, really maybe before that, if you want to go back to the horse himself, Dayne, back in the late 90s. But for this, Ryan, your three backs are going to be Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor, and Montee Ball. Who are you going to start, bench, cut?
Oh, man. So you notice when you said Melvin Gordon, I just started smiling like I can't help it. like a kid in a candy shop. So this is a great one because all three of these dudes they were total dudes. Immediately, though, and I think most Wisconsin fans would agree with it, you got to cut Montee Ball. You just got to immediately. And we're talking about cutting a guy who had 39 touchdowns in a season, 39, right? Yeah. Number 4 in the Heisman that year. And quite frankly, if he didn't go to Wisconsin and he went to a school in the South or in Ohio State, Notre Dame, there would be Heismans on this list. Wisconsin backs get hurt a little bit by that stigma.
They do.
But the reason that you cut Montee Ball, all due respect, 2 reasons. He didn't have the game-breaking ability that the other 2 dudes had. He just didn't have that type of jaw-dropping athleticism or speed that Taylor and the type of incredible burst and acceleration that Gordon had. So there's a different level of athleticism with those 2 that Ball just didn't have. The other reason you do it is, and this isn't Ball's fault at all, but he was part of an ecosystem offensively that was insane. And people outside of Wisconsin don't know this, and we're not taking a deep dive on it, but the offenses he was on had a Russell Wilson, had multiple first-round picks on the offensive line, had 2 receivers that were drafted, had a fullback that was drafted. In fact, the offense he was on had 10 players drafted into the NFL. It's one of the deepest and best offenses that people don't talk about. So he didn't have stacked boxes because he had Russell Wilson. The other 2 dudes had stacked boxes and had to run through a lot more muck. So I'll pause there for comments, questions if you guys want. But yeah, Montee Ball's the guy I got to cut, unfortunately.
Man, it's not surprising because, like I say, it's all 3 of these. I don't think you could go wrong with either of these dudes. You know what I'm saying? And Wisconsin does have a good lineage of running backs. 39 touchdowns, man. That's wild, bro. In one season, I don't care. And I don't care if he would have played in the playoff era or none of that. You know what I'm saying? It's like 39 touchdowns. I don't care how many games you play. That's a lot in one season.
That's a lot of cheddar, man. It's insane. So then it gets to the really tough one. And I got to tell you, when you guys reached out to me, I instantly in my head said Jonathan Taylor. Like, it was a pretty quick decision for me. Based on a couple things, based on the fact that, when Melvin got to Wisconsin, it took him a couple years to wind up. When Jonathan Taylor got to Wisconsin, the day he walked on campus, he was the best player on offense. He had the most rushing yards in his first 3 seasons from any running back in history. I mean, he obliterated, I think Herschel Walker had the previous record. He obliterated Herschel Walker. And then I started thinking about it and I switched my mind up. So that's where I went. So I instantly went Taylor as more of a career thing, and Taylor was incredible, the total package. And then I realized, you know what, though, if I need to start a game, if I need a season out of somebody, Melvin Gordon is going to be my pick here. He's going to be my start. And it's because I instantly went Taylor, a little recency bias there probably. But I also took his career as a whole. Mm-hmm. But, you know, the apex of Melvin Gordon, he had one of the finest running back seasons in the history of college football.
He did.
And when he was at his best, he was a little better than Taylor, in my opinion. Just more electric, more game breaking. So, yeah, that's where I settled at. I'm curious if you guys agree, disagree. Think I'm crazy?
I immediately, before we let Stat Guy get into his research, I immediately, when he told me the 3 backs he was going to give you, I went Melvin Gordon to start regardless. Only because, of course, I'm a Georgia guy, and Melvin Gordon came out the same year as Todd Gurley. And the only reason why Todd Gurley went higher than Melvin Gordon is because he had better hands in the passing game. But Melvin Gordon was just like I said, like you said, like the one season, you know, if you're looking at one season, like who I'm going to start, it's got to be Melvin Gordon. I mean, the dude's like, I think he was the best athlete of the group, in my opinion, you know what I'm saying? So I think, you know, Jonathan Taylor, he put up the stats, but I don't know. Melvin Gordon just jumped off the page to me. So it's like
I agree.
I would have went with Melvin Gordon. Honestly, I don't know. I might have Montee Ball. He did play with Russell Wilson, but I don't know. I could see cutting Jonathan and going with Ball. But
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. What you got for me, Stat Guy?
So I actually did cut Jonathan Taylor. And the reason why is Montee Ball was on a 3-headed monster in 2011 and 2012. You not only had Melvin Gordon on campus, you also had James White on campus. Ooh. And all 3 of those dudes are in the top 6 in Wisconsin history in rushing yards.
Yeah.
So the fact that he put up the numbers he did while still having to share some carries with some younger pups. And like you said, they had a little bit more of a passing attack with Russell being on campus. I think, if you just look pure stat wise, pure yards wise, it was Taylor, but he was the featured back from halfway through his freshman year on, where with Montee Ball, he had to kind of wait his turn. And then when it became his turn, he had to then share carries with 2 other cats that could get it. But you hit the nail on the head. Melvin Gordon's the starter. Melvin Gordon had 295 less carries than Jonathan Taylor. If he gets the same amount of carries, he breaks the record of Ron Dayne. I did the homework on it. He breaks the record. He goes over 7,200, and he shows all-time leading rusher. And so he just kind of got hurt from the fact of the standpoint that, you know, he actually came in a year behind James White and then took the man's job. Like, it should have been James White. James White should have been next man up behind Montee Ball, and he was like, hold on a second, Playboy. This is my time. So, but look, and I was messing with when I picked Wisconsin. Man, I'd take any one of these 3 running backs at South Carolina right now, please and thank you. But just some of the names on the because we were thinking about James White potentially, and it's like
that was the first guy I threw out when he said he was going to do running back. I was like, "You going to do James White?" He was like, "Well," and then we couldn't do Ryan Dayne, man. It's like kind of unfair.
Going too far back.
Yeah, and it's unfair.
No, not only that, but as soon as you say Ryan Dayne, there's your starter.
That's interesting. I would disagree.
Okay.
And so there's so much. So again, like I could geek out on this, and I know I can't talk to people for hours because they'll go to sleep on me with Wisconsin. But here's the thing with Melvin. If we can actually, let me go to Taylor first. So one of the interesting things with Taylor, and we talked about coming in right away. It's a great point about the workload. Like he was given the ball right away, whereas some of these other guys had to wait. But if you look at the top 37 rushing seasons in college football history by yardage, Taylor has 3 of them. I mean, you think about the number of players that have played in the years we played college football. 3 of the top 37 rushing seasons in the history of college football is Jonathan Taylor. And it was true freshman, true sophomore, true junior. This isn't a dude who took a year to redshirt like so many dudes did. So I just can't cut him. But this is all splitting hairs here. This is all nuance. The other thing I want to talk about with Gordon, and if you and a stat guy, I'm sure Jeff, you've probably done this. If you look back at what he did in 2014, you're talking 2,500 plus yards on almost 8 yards per pop. That's 2,500 yards on 300 plus carries.
Yeah.
Just for perspective, if you go back, really the only backs you can find in that stratosphere, it's the Barry Sanders season. It's the Mike Rozier season.
Yeah.
I mean, all the great backs in the SEC, you guys know it's better than anybody, have had a ton of great backs, but Bo didn't do this. Herschel didn't do this, just from that 1 year. And, he had a game that year against Nebraska where he put up 408 in 3 quarters before the game got out of hand. He averaged 11 yards a pop against a real team. Like, we all clown on Nebraska, but that's not Furman.
Yeah. True that.
He put up 408 on them. If he had played that whole game.
I mean, you're looking at video game numbers, and the crazy thing is, it's not just him averaging just shy of 8 yards a pop. It's him doing that on 356 times.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that you average 8 yards a pop is cool. If you got maybe 75 carries, like, that's still a great year. He did it as a workhorse. I mean, took the ball. And I wondered kind of where you were going to go with some of the stats. Obviously, there was the big touchdown season by Montee Ball. He did have the one where he went for the 33-day thing, but I was wondering where it was going to go because, any of these guys could have, I mean, like I said, with him and Melvin and James White splitting touches and splitting touchdowns, I mean, any one of those guys, their numbers could have been a lot higher, just depending on, did they break the long run? Did they just run the ball down the field? Now you bring in one of your backups and they get to punch it in. I mean,
before I get to my last question, the Montee Ball, I want to hit something you said about Montee Ball about him playing with Russell, so he didn't play against loaded boxes. That is kind of it's not a negative, but it takes away from his lure or whatever. But in the same sense, can't you say he played with a more pass happy offense and he still put up those numbers?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like it's definitely ecosystem stuff. Like, so absolutely. He overachieved given the amount of touches he was given when you looked at the touchdowns per touch, right? That kind of stuff. But the only issue with that is, and your point is correct. But as a Wisconsin fan, like, Melvin Gordon's great year, that year, Wisconsin threw more interceptions than touchdowns. I mean, just think about, like, the insanity of that, of having a running back that good and still not being able to hit play action passes. So every game it was 8-9 man boxes. And I remember they played Auburn in the bowl game. And if you guys remember, I think it was Artis Payne was Auburn's running back that year. Cameron Artis Payne. And he made a comment before the game. Auburn kind of did. They threw some bulletin board material out there and they said, well, our guy probably could have done that against Big Ten defenses too. Long story short, Gordon tore Auburn up. Long story short, he slaughtered them. And a couple months later, I was on a work trip and I was in San Diego and I was sharing a hotel with the San Diego Chargers who drafted Melvin Gordon. I just randomly got into their hotel that they were also using for practice. And one of the Auburn players on that team was in there. And I was talking to him about, we just honestly is all random circle. And I said, what about Gordon? Like, you played him, you're on and that dude was just like, he's a different animal. He's a different guy.
That's right, man. So, all right. So your question is, Wisconsin backs are great at running, but they're never known for being great in the pass game. Who would you say of the three is the best pass catcher?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that is Montee. Montee in college was really good there. Yeah,
I would definitely say that. Like I say, when Gordon came out, the knock on him was that he couldn't catch that good, and I think that's what Now, don't get me wrong. Now, Gordon put up the numbers, but I'm still taking Todd Gurley. But that might be a little bias. So
listen, we all have biases, man. We all do. And Gurley was a monster, so there's no shame there.
Yeah. So.
And then my question: the current back you have on campus, do you see him breaking into the top 10 all time in rushing yards?
Oh man. So if you haven't seen, and again, you see me already get excited, Braylon Allen is the guy we got on campus now. The funny thing with Braylon Allen is he came in early. So he classified a year early. He played the entire season last year as a 17-year-old and he averaged 6.8 yards per carry as a 17-year-old. So he's finally 18 now this year. And he is just a physical freak show. A lot of it's injury dependent, right? If he can stay healthy, he has a chance to be as good as we've had, quite frankly. A different type of back, more of a Derrick Henry build. But he is that type of physical, just freak show. He can squat the side of a house. And as a 17-year-old, he was the best running back in the Big Ten, or at least one of the 2 or 3 best running backs in the Big Ten. So the sky's the limit there.
I see it. I can see it. So, hey, I got to, man, listen, like I said, I like to have people on that know football. Listen, I got another question I just thought about. So you know, a lot of talking. I'm pretty sure you follow all of college football, not just Wisconsin and Big Ten, but you know that Georgia and Alabama kind of like go back and forth as
Sure.
RBU, and then Wisconsin almost gets like a third place in that. But do you think so? If you think about it, Georgia really doesn't have those backs that put up 39 touchdowns, that put up 2,500 yards, you know, and outside of Dagger Hearing, I mean, I think Melvin Ingram might have put up 1,500 or something like that, but they get touted as the better running back. So you think Wisconsin is kind of hurt because of the style of offense? You know, because it's almost like every running back that goes to Wisconsin is putting up 1,000 regardless. You know what I'm saying? And what they do past 1,000 is what makes them great or not great. Kind of like a Mike Leach offense. Like you never hear about his wide receivers or his quarterbacks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You think Wisconsin's hurt by that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think there's a couple things going on here. There's definitely, and I mean, there is an SEC bias. There just is. And it's earned, by the way. Like I'm not a guy who it is an earned bias. That's been the best conference in college football for a long time. You know, the depth and the defenses and the NFL draft picks bear that out. But because of that, there is a bit of a bias there that a school like, again, if Melvin had been in the SEC, he would have won a Heisman. I'll for that 2014 season. I'll never say that's not true. Montee Ball, if he put up 39 touchdowns, you imagine a guy putting up 39 touchdowns at Georgia, at Alabama, and not winning a Heisman. I mean, Melvin Gordon, Trent Richardson finished above Montee Ball in the Heisman race that year. And here's his numbers: 1,600 yards and 21 touchdowns. He finished up ahead of Montee Ball that season. I mean, right? It's ludicrous, but it's partially because Wisconsin does have a system, and that's a great point on your side that always produces running backs. Now, if people watch football, and you guys do, I do, the people who really watch football, you can see a Wisconsin running back like Melvin Gordon and understand he's special, right? Because Wisconsin has other back. Corey Clement went to Wisconsin, really good player, plays for the Eagles, but he's not a special back.
Yeah.
You know, so we've had a string at Wisconsin of special dudes. It's partial luck, just partial whatever. And yeah, partially they got hurt because of the system, and they get hurt a little bit because they're in the Big Ten and they're playing at Wisconsin and they're not playing at Ohio State or Georgia or.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that, man. So, but all right, man, we're glad you came on and talk some
I appreciate
shot with
it.
us, man. And you always welcome to come back on the show, whether it's Big Ten, college football, or just Wisconsin, man. So we want to thank you for getting in here, man. Y'all don't forget to go check them out, Locked On Badgers. That's on YouTube and on Twitter if you just want to talk some college ball, especially Wisconsin and Big Ten, man. So for Coach, for Stat Guy, for Ryan at Locked On Badgers, Coach Guy. Yeah.
We got it jumping like it's that valley. I call my dogs out the pound, let's go eat. Turn on the fanatic, let's have a debate. Who really hold down the Southeast from state to state? What team hungry gonna eat everything up off they plate?